week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to Mind Hostage. Today is part 3 of a 4-part series, interview with Karla Soloman. Please listen in as Karla shares her life story leading up to her becoming a victim of the human trafficking industry. This tragic story shares a journey of tragedy through a time when Karla was able to find her life purpose through the midst of her adversity.
So all of this goes on like this for, I want to say, about a week, maybe longer. And the redhead is with us again. And we drive way out to Covington, which is like an hour and 45-minute drive one way just to get there, one way. Way out of the way, way in the middle of nowhere. And she goes, we park, she goes inside the house, she comes back kind of fast. And she doesn't have any money this time. So I have no GPS location, I don't know where I'm at, he just tells me to drive. So I listen. We find our way back to the interstate, we get on I-10, and we start heading back towards Baton Rouge. When we got to Houma, Louisiana, which is kind of in the middle point, it's kind of right before the Pontchartrain bridge. So it's on the other side, so that's like where it's all swamp. He had me pull over at this little abandoned, it's not really a rest stop. I would really call it a fishing hole now, I guess, right up underneath the bridge. It's like just a slab of concrete.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people go out there to go fishing because, you know, it's deep water right there. So he made me park the car under the bridge, turn the lights off. And he gets out of the car and he walks around and gets her out of the car by grabbing her and jerking her out. And I guess she knew what was about to happen because as soon as he opened the door, she starts screaming, "No, no, 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 no." He pulled her to the back of my car where the trunk was. And he told me to stay in the car before he shut the door. So I'm sitting at the steering wheel with both of my hands on the steering wheel. And I'm watching him in my rearview mirror. And all I can hear is her screaming, and I can hear his fist like connecting with her body. And he didn't stop. He just kept punching her. And punching her, and I was so scared. I didn't want to get out to help her because I didn't want him to hurt me too. I had already experienced physical abuse, and I know it's not fun. It's scary. So I just sat there with a straight look on my face, and I watched him as he beat her. He got back in the car, and he wore like layers of t-shirts, like 2 or 3 sometimes. So he took the top t-shirt off and wiped the blood off of his hands and tossed it out the window. And he looked at me and he told me, "Drive." I was scared to argue. I was scared to ask anything. I was scared to do anything but exactly what he told me. So I drive. He made me leave her there. And I still don't know what happened to her to this day. He told me to go back to the hotel that we had already gotten like 2 days before this. Or he had gotten. I guess he was staying there. I'm not really sure. But I went back to the La Quinta in Baton Rouge, and usually when we would get to a hotel and it was just me and him, you know, we would like lay in the bed for at least an hour, just like cuddling and touching and feel, you know, just that touchy-feely stuff. That's what I liked, period. You know, that's part of my love language is affection. So that didn't happen. We get to the hotel and he goes straight to the little office area. And he pulls out all these phones and lays them out in front of him. It's like 2 or 3 phones. And he starts doing stuff on all 3 of them, like at the same time. I had no idea what's going on. None. And he was over there for a little while, and the whole time I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, like with my hands in my lap, like hands between my legs, kind of like scared, kind of, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's about to happen. But something kept telling me it wasn't good. So he gets satisfied with whatever he did on the phones, and he picks one up and he walks over to me and he shows it to me. What's on the screen of the phone? And it's 3 different pictures of a girl that looks very similar to what I looked like back then. She's in very provocative clothing and very enticing positions in the pictures. And so he shows me all of this, and these pictures, like this girl, she's at first I didn't even realize what it was. And he moved the pictures a little bit, and it's got all of this lingo that I didn't understand. Like GFE, PSE. And it's like an ad, you know. And it's got all these little letterings and stuff and prices that are numbers with roses. Like saying GFE, 150 roses. You know, PSE, 100 roses. I had no idea that this was lingo that they use for online sites for sex. So he asked me what I thought, and I just kind of looked at him confused, and he tells me, I just need you to do it like one time, so until I get another girl to replace her. I tried to walk to the door and leave, and he stopped me, put his hand in front of the door, shut it back before I could open it all the way. And he grabs me and he holds me and he tells me how much he loves me and how much he needs me and how much we could have such a good life and that it's going to be awesome and that I just need to trust him and I need to make sure that I honor him and do what he says. But the main thing was the trust. So I agreed to do it. I told him one time, and he said, yes, that's it. I just need you to do it one time. One time, that's it. And that one time turns into another and another and another. And before you know it, I have a $1,500 a day quota. And if I don't meet that quota, he punished me. And his form of punishment was say that I had gotten a phone call or a request from a potential customer that wanted me to do certain things that I was not comfortable doing. He would punish me by doing those exact same things. But instead of doing it in a hotel room or an actual bedroom, he would drive out to like the middle of nowhere so that nobody could hear me scream. Abandoned houses, open fields. He told me that he did all that because I asked him one day, I was like, why do you do that to me? It hurts. It's painful. And instead of being the caring person that I thought he was at first, he would tell me something so hateful like, well, you just need to get with it because everybody else does it, stuff like that. And just nothing ever, it wasn't the same anymore. The relationship, the man that I actually started to have feelings for turned into a complete freaking monster. Somebody that I didn't even know anymore.
And I guess in the meantime, you had been cut off from other friends and family and stuff.
Yeah.
You were kind of isolated.
I was very isolated. The guys in Baton Rouge were still looking for me, or on the other side of Baton Rouge were still looking for me. My husband intentionally had told me to stay away from his mom's house until all of that blew over with those guys. So I wasn't able to reach out to him. I felt like I had no other choice. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have anybody that I trusted to not hurt me. So he took me out of town. He told me that things were getting crazy in Baton Rouge and that he didn't want those guys finding me, that he wanted to protect me. So he takes me to Houston and starts doing the same thing over there. He would rent a hotel room for a couple of days, run ads on Backpage, and that's how I would make money for him. It didn't matter if I was not feeling good. It didn't even matter if I was on my period. There's ways to get around that too, that a lot of people don't realize. Especially in that kind of life and that kind of industry. So
let me ask you real quick. I mean, since you're openly sharing about this, I mean, it's one thing to say you had to do this repeatedly and you had a quota, but I would imagine you came in contact with a lot of men. Number one, that were uncaring, but that were physical with you, that were harmful to you in other ways. Is that true?
Yes. Being in that situation, I have came in contact with a lot of different men. I will tell you that a lot of people that I guess you call bought me before they would even give me the money, they would ask me, are you doing this for yourself? Or is there like some big black guy sitting outside like waiting on you? Jokingly. But little did they know that that was the honest truth of what was going on. But I had already been coached at that point that if somebody asks me, then I'm supposed to say no. Because if I told that man the truth, oh yeah, there is a big black guy waiting outside my car, that white car right there. If I would have told them the truth, the punishment that I would have endured through fat, would have been a whole lot worse than the 10, 15 minutes had to endure in that hotel room.
So does it include physical punishment as well?
Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That obviously costs more. So when I say quota, and I say $1,500 a day, he would give me the choice of how I wanted to make that $1,500. Did I want to do a bunch of small, short jobs? Or did I just want to suck it up for 2 hours and allow someone to do whatever they wanted for a higher cost?
So for that price, it was obviously things that were very unpleasant.
Right. Very.
Because here's something that, I want to take a moment for the listeners to understand is that the situation you were in. I see that there are lots of women who have to pay the price, that are breaking the law, that are committing the crime. Yet this whole sex trade industry is driven by the kind of men that you had to see on multiple occasions every day.
Yep.
It's driven by the desires of men who you come in contact with every day. The same kind that I think we talked about earlier, where people see one thing on the outside facade,
Mm-hmm.
but yet there's something else behind closed doors, behind the curtain.
Definitely. And a lot of it, I think, too, is society has basically normalized stuff like that to the point of these men. Say that you and your wife are shopping for a, washer and dryer combo. You walk into the store, salesperson comes up to you and asks you what you're looking for. Washer and dryer combo. I want them to match, though. I want them to both be red, both front loading or top loading, or, you put all of these requirements of what you're looking for because you're the one buying it. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to get what you paid for.
Right.
In the sex industry, same exact circumstances. They are paying for it. They expect to get what they paid for, what has been agreed upon, and if it's not delivered, guess what? You ain't getting paid.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and I'm certain there's plenty of perversions
Yes.
that are out there. Now, I also know there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks, regardless of the topic out there, and people that are just going, why in the world didn't you just leave? Why?
That is a very typical question, too.
Right.
It really is, to people that are not able to hear or see my whole story.
Right.
They do not understand that sometimes certain events in your life will happen, and the way everything happens, you would just think that, gosh, she is so stupid. Why didn't she just leave? If it got that bad, why didn't she leave?
Mm-hmm.
Where the hell was I going to go? Where? You tell me. Because if that's the case, I would have went. I had nobody and nothing, nowhere to go. What was I going to do? He had already isolated me from my family. He made me completely dependent upon him for food, shelter, everything. If I wanted, and people don't understand. They say, oh, well, there's shelters out there, and there's, this out there, there's resources out there. What are you supposed to do when you don't even know what's happening to you?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You feel like you have put yourself in a position and that you are just so stupid to not see it coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you were groomed from the beginning. That's the thing, and they control your mind. That's what abusers of every type do: is they gain control, they make you dependent, they isolate you, and they control you by fear.
Yes, and that was a big thing, because I'll tell you, he took me from Baton Rouge, and like I said, we had already went to Houston, but going further, we went all the way up to Colorado. And he would stop at every, 2 days here, 2 days there, 3 days there, at every major city in between Baton Rouge and Colorado that ran ads for Backpage.
And he had you lined out in every city.
Every single one, because he knew the route. So what he would do is he would set up a page, and whenever we would get like an hour, 2 hours away from the next location, he would post it to where in the car, I'm sitting there answering phones with him listening. You know what I'm saying? It's everything is supervised. Everything that I say, everything that everything that is typed, everything that is said was completely his words coming out of my mouth or through my thumbs. He would tell me exactly what to say, what times, how to set a point, like everything. He coached me in the car on this long drive of how to actually talk to these men on these sites. Or not on the sites, I'm sorry. On Backpage, they would run an ad. What he did was downloaded a Text Now app, which gives you a phone number for Wi-Fi calling and stuff like that. But you can pick a phone number, like say I'm in Texas right now, but if I want like a Colorado phone number, all I have to do is download Text Now, and they'll ask you, well, what location? Colorado. It'll give you a Colorado phone number.
Wow.
So he would put that phone number on the Backpage ad, so all the calls and everything that were coming through came on my phone where it had the Text Now app. Something a lot of people don't realize that you can do is that, say I gave you my password and my login name, and you download Text Now on your phone and log in with my password and my username, every single message that I've ever gotten is going to download to your phone. It's the same thing. It's just like saying that if I got a tablet and downloaded a game on this tablet and I had it on my phone, they're synced. So progress is saying, you get what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So that was how he was able to monitor and manipulate everything that's being said. That was also another way for him to see if I was trying to reach out for help, if I was just not answering these people that were calling the phone, or if I turned down a good offer. He would see that too. So he took me all the way to Colorado, and it did not get any better. I was so far away from home. He introduced me to smoking methamphetamine, which I had never done before. But the pitch that he used was pretty convincing. He told me that if I did the drug, I wouldn't feel anymore. That sounded like a pretty good idea to me at the time. Not even gonna lie. And at that point, I really didn't even care. I had already been hurt so bad. I was tired of living. Like, I didn't even care. So, in Colorado, even though we were so far away from anybody I ever knew or anything, I don't know what got into me, but I started being defiant. I got tired. My body was giving out on me. I got to the point like everything was painful. Everything hurt. I hadn't had a break. My body needed recovery time, period. And so I was starting to, I guess I was starting to get defiant. I started telling him, like, no, I'm not doing that. And he really got tired of me telling him what I was and wasn't going to do. So in Colorado, this customer comes in to the room that I had. And this was probably the nicest man throughout this whole ordeal. This man comes into the room, and he was a grower. He grew weed, and he gave me the money, and he asked me, he was like, hey, there's a big dude sitting outside in a white car. He was like, it's got Louisiana plates. He was like, I know you said you're from Louisiana. He was like, is he with you? My guard went up. I was like, no, I don't have my car here. My friend has my car. She's out partying or whatever. And he was like, oh, okay, I'm just making sure. He was like, he was like, it just seemed kind of weird. And I didn't want you to, like, be in trouble or anything. He was like, if you are in trouble, like, I'll help you. Instead of wanting sex, this man sat on the bed with me, smoked weed, and told me about his pregnant girlfriend at home that he couldn't have sex with because the doctor told him that they couldn't have sex anymore. Like, throughout her, at the end of her pregnancy, that it might force her into labor quick or whatever. She's having some complications. And the whole time we're just sitting there talking and laughing. And Fat calls the phone, and since me and the guy wasn't even doing anything, I answered it. I was like, oh, wait, hold on, my friend's calling. I answered the phone, I'm all high, bubbly and high and, just happy-go-lucky. I was sitting in a room that nobody was asking me to do anything, and this guy, and he actually paid for it too. So I wasn't about to get in trouble or not, I didn't see no problem with this. I didn't even have to do anything, and I made your money. You get what I'm, that's what I was thinking. So he calls the phone, and all he said was, he needs to go. I was like, well, we haven't even done anything yet. And he was like, I don't care. Tell him he needs to leave, and he needs to leave now. I said, okay. I hang up the phone. Set the phone down. I wasn't trying to be mean, honestly. I wasn't trying to be rude. This man just gave me money to talk to me. And I was still talking to him, and he was about to leave me some weed, so I thought everything was going to be okay. Fat calls again, and I answer the phone. I don't think I can say this on here, but he said, you B-word. And I felt like the color drain out of my face. I knew I messed up. I don't know what I did, but I knew I did something bad. And I knew something bad was about to happen. So I told the guy, it's like, you gotta go, and you gotta go now. And he was like, what do you mean? And I told him, I was like, I can't explain. I can't tell you. You need to go before you get hurt. And what I really meant to say was, you need to go before I get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And I made him leave. And as soon as he was out of the parking lot, Fat busted in the door and grabbed me by my throat and picked me like 2 feet off of the ground and held me pinned up against the wall. And I remember him telling me that I am supposed to listen to him no matter what, because it's not, the rules aren't set in place for him, they are set in place for my protection. He slams me on the bed and chokes me until I pass out. I woke up in the bed, not covered, same clothes, shoes on and everything. And I was sleeping, I was out, kind of on my side, like one hand underneath my body and the other one kind of draped over the side. And he is sleeping on my back, like half on my body. But he's asleep. As soon as I move, he wakes up. I realized that was the reason he was sleeping on top of me, is to where he knew if I moved or if I got up. And that was probably the first time that he was physical with me, but it didn't end there. He had been physical sexually, but not like just outright physical, like hitting me and things until then. So a little bit after that, a couple of days after that, we're at another hotel and he's got this other girl with us and she's got a baby, a 6-month-old baby. Well, we had these 2 rooms like that had the adjoining door in the middle, and they were having sex, them 2. The door was open. Didn't really bother me. Like I was honestly grateful that he was not doing it to me, honestly. So the baby woke up. The baby started crying. And I sat there and listened. They never stopped having sex. The baby's still crying. I was instructed that I'm never allowed to touch that baby. I found out later that baby was his. I was not allowed to touch the baby no matter what. I was dirty. So, baby keeps crying. Almost an hour goes by. And the baby's still crying. And they're still having sex. So I got up and I shut the door. I went and laid in the bed. And I guess I fell asleep. The next morning, I was woken up by him telling me to stand up and look him in the face. So I did. And when I did, I looked at him in the face. When I looked at him in the face, I can't really remember what he said, but I know he said something, but right as he said it, and this guy weighed maybe 280 pounds. Big dude. Really big. Very muscular and fit. When I looked him in his eyes and he told me whatever he said, he punched me as hard as he could in my ribs. And I immediately collapsed on the floor and peed on myself. He broke 3 of my ribs. My whole rib cage just caved in. I was in so much pain. And he was standing over me, and he tells me, he's like, get up again. I told him, I can't. And he told me, he said, get up. So I stood up, and he told me to look at him in the face again, and I was crying with my eyes closed. And he told me to look him in his eyes, and when I did, he punched me in the face. And I fell back again to the ground. And when I did that, he just started punching me in random places wherever he could connect. I remember laying on a bathroom floor. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I heard the door shut. And I looked up and he wasn't in there. And I told the girl that was in the other room, Jasmine. I told Jasmine, I was like, I need to go to the hospital. I think he broke my ribs. Like 2 minutes later, he comes busting in the door, telling me, like holding me by my shirt and pulling me up, telling me, didn't I tell you you weren't allowed to talk to her? And told me that I wasn't going to go to the hospital, that I was going to do what he said, and that if I didn't like it, he was going to break the other side. So he made me pack my stuff, broken ribs and everything. I had a big bruise on the left side of my face. All of this eye and around it was bruised. I had broken ribs. I had random, big bruises the size of, small dinner plates on my thighs. Just random places, like one on my back, just from when he was, randomly connecting with whatever. And he tells me to pack my stuff, and I get all my stuff ready, and because I know that I screamed in that hotel room. I know that we got loud, and I know he was scared that, I don't know if he was scared of the police or what. I personally don't think that he was scared of anything, ever. So we move locations again, and this time he goes, from Colorado, he decides to drive, in a straight drive, almost back to Texas. We stopped a couple places in between, but not as many as the way there. So he was trying to get away from Colorado. Whatever reason, I don't know. If it was because all that happened there, I really don't know. He never told us or told me where we were going next. When we got to Houston, I knew I had to leave. I didn't care whether I was on the street. I didn't care if I had to sleep in my car. I didn't care what I had to do, but I knew I had to leave. I knew, because I was in so much pain. I could barely breathe, and I was still having to do all of this work for him. So we ran out of drugs. We ran out of meth, and he got tired. We were staying at Holiday Inn on Southwest Freeway. It's 3-story, hotel, maybe even more, probably more, a lot more. Anyways, so we're at this hotel, and he got tired, and he left my keys to my car on the dresser in the room, which that was something he never left out of his pocket. But because he was coming off drugs, he wasn't really paying attention to what he was doing. I grab the keys and I take off. And I grab my backpack and I run down 3 flights of stairs, and I jump in my car and I turn it on, the little button, and I go to pull out, and I screamed bloody murder. I'd never had a broken bone before, especially not something untreated, And when I turn the wheel to turn the corner, that was painful. So I didn't get very far. I got down to the little gas station, the first little gas station that I seen, and I pulled over. And I was sitting in my car. I didn't really know what to do yet. I was just kind of on the adrenaline from running. And I was sitting there and I was trying to figure out, what to do next. I knew I needed to get to the hospital. That was, first and foremost on my radar. I knew I needed to get to the hospital. So I call my aunt, or I reach out to her on Facebook. And I'm like, Aunt Liz, I don't know what I told her. I do not remember. I don't know what it sounded like to her, but she told me that I needed to stop making up stories and that I needed to grow up, and that if I'm in that kind of situation, that I probably deserve it, and that I put myself there so that it's my time to figure out how to fix it myself, basically. All I was wanting from anybody was for them to either come get me and take me to the hospital or meet me at the hospital. That was all I was asking, as far as I can remember anyway. So after being turned down by my aunt and by my cousin, which was her daughter, I didn't know what else to do. So I was fixing to go to the hospital all on my own. And I start getting all of these text messages. He figured out I left. And he's telling me, like, I better come back. If I don't come back, I'm not, just all this stuff. And I kind of ignored it all. I was just like, you know what? You're stupid if you think I'm coming back. Like, what? What is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
You would be stupid and insane to go back to that. He's sent me one more text message. And that text message was probably the hardest thing and the scariest I've ever dealt with. He told me, he said, if you don't come back, I'm taking your daughter and I'm going to do the same thing to her. My baby girl was 5.
I want to thank you again for tuning in to today's episode, and we encourage you to listen to the final of a 4-part series interview with Karla Soloman as she shares her story in order to shed light on this tragic industry and how it affects all those involved. Thank you, Mind Hostage fans, and again, you can reach the show by emailing us at themindhostage@gmail.com. You can visit us on our website at www.mindhostage.com.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.